ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And welcome to another episode here. Nothing but facts. Safina Society. Getting ever so close to episode 600. Which brings me to the point. What episode are we on? Alif. 596. Okay, let's take a moment to think about that. Okay, 596. Is there anything cool about that? Not that you know of. So nothing cool about 596. I can't. Phone number? My phone number doesn't have 59. No, nothing about 596 resonates. Let's think about this, guys, as we proceed. 596. I realize Dr. Shadi has to do episode 600. And for some reason, I was doing the math with Rayanne last episode, and we got to thinking I would be here for 599. And I got a little bit excited about that. I can't lie. It's like the eve of 600. But 596 gives us 3 more episodes. And unfortunately, for me, I'm not scheduled for any of those 3. I'll be here, inshallah, after 600, after we turn the dial on the big 600. So check this out. A couple of things I think worth mentioning right off the bat. And the first is, who has tried the peanut butter banana mayonnaise sandwich? I want to know about that, because peanut butter banana, okay, peanut butter banana. I can't believe we're doing this again. Peanut butter. Because if you haven't tried it, peanut butter on the bottom, banana, because that holds it in place, okay? Because you got to cut the sandwich. So you need some like glue. That's the peanut butter. And then the mayonnaise on top, okay? If you haven't tried that, bismillah, let's give it a run, okay? Welcome to my world. You know, come back, report. I want you to report the joy, the life-altering experience that was the peanut butter, banana, and mayonnaise sandwich. That's talking about, this is the deal. This is where I'm going with this, in case you think like, what's happening? What are we doing here? We're taking a, like the sense of taste. It's a sense, right? Is that how we describe that? The sense of taste. Okay, because I want to move from the taste. And we've been talking about tastes, not just flavors of banana sandwiches, but spiritual flavors, tastes. And I want to move from tastes today to fragrances. So the sense of smell, okay? And this is where I have developed a scale for odors, and I'm talking about body odor, okay? So imagine this for a minute, and this is the unpleasant type. I think we could reverse the scale. So I want you to help me develop, because this is iteration number 1 on what we're going to call this like the odor meter, the odor meter. So you need to be asking yourself every day, where am I right now on the odor meter? Okay, so this is what I've come up with. All right, so it starts with 1. The first point on the scale is a 1, and what that means is that one person can smell you, and that's yourself. It starts with the number 1. That's me. Numero uno is ana, me, I, the one. So, and why did I develop this? And I'm going to admit this, because I was at a 1. You know, you can smell yourself. You're like, all right, we're getting to a point now where we need to address the meter. We're at a 1. So a 1 is like, you can get away with like human interaction. Right? You can still maybe do some things and no one's going to pick up on it because you're at a 1. Okay. So you are aware that you have a body odor. Okay. It's natural, guys. Okay. Don't be like, we all get to that. Okay. The problem is when that goes to a 2. Okay, so that means now not just one person can smell you, but number 2 next to you can. It doesn't mean just 2 as in 2 people, because the 2 could encompass like a group of people around you in your immediate physical space. That one person at level 2 now could be like a person standing to your immediate right, or for example, you're praying, somebody on your right and somebody on your left. Those 2 people that are right there are getting a number 2 when they can smell your odor. It's a nahnu, exactly. We're in a nahnu situation. We're not a ana anymore. Exactly. That's perfect. Yes. So this is the nahnu level. And then, as you might imagine, the number can continue to incrementally go upward till now your body odor is at a number 3, which means like it's not. So let's just say one person, and then this is 2 people, and then 3 people proximity wise. Like you can make a whole circle around you. So 3, and then a 4. So now you're not only like invading somebody's nose next to you, but the other person next to them and next to them, and then it gets to a 5, and then basically you're at room level. It's a cool. It's a gem al-jam', right? Gem al-jam'i. We get a all-encompassing situation where you have reached the odor meter of 5+. You've walked into a room and you've now dominated the environment. The sense sense of smell environment has now been abused, has been totally ravaged by your personal odor. So maybe we need to do a plus and a minus on the scale. That's where we need to talk about like taking it to the next iteration, because there's good odors and there's bad odors. And this is the thing about that. If you're on a negative, let's say negative is like a bad odor, then you don't want to be there. Okay. Just in case you didn't know, you don't want to be in the negative, right? We want to be in the positive. So we want to try and have good odors. Now, this is something that I experienced, and I wasn't able to articulate it during my days in Medina, because we're in the desert. It's warm. You know what happens when things heat up? We start sweating a little bit and things start getting funky. And you're in an environment, Medina University, just in case you're not familiar with it, it's an all-male university. I've had people ask me, were there any ladies that attended? Like, is there a ladies wing, or is there like a ladies college? And I don't know where it's headed now today, but when I was there, the idea that there would be like a ladies college or even like that type of environment was so funny to me. It was so like ridiculous to me, because it's a bunch of dudes. It's all dudes that are like just out of high school, college age, maybe a few older than that, all single. I only ran to a few married students. Obviously, as you get into like the upperclassmen, they start to get married, but by and large, it's like a bunch of single guys, bachelors, and I always felt like in my mind that, and Medina University is walled in. So like there's a wall that goes all the way around it, and there's doors to get in and out. So I always felt like it was the lion's cage, right? And you had to get in and out of the cage. And for some reason, it felt like if there was a lady there, I don't know if this is the wrong thing to say. I might get I was already canceled. I know. Good. Well, you want to just go ahead and do it? It was like, God, a piece of fresh, juicy meat. I don't know, for a lion. Is that what you were thinking I was going to say? That's exactly what I was going to say. So yeah, so this was the deal. It was like there's a road that goes up to the university. It was like kind of like the main road. And it seemed culturally understood that ladies would not even go down that road. Like I never saw a lady walking down that road, let alone driving down that road that led up to the university, because like that's all there is. So like there's no real business besides university business there. So it's kind of like, why are we even going down that road? And yeah, so that was the all male environment. And of course, we lived in dorms, close quarters, and it was an international university. So you get a lot of people from everywhere. And cultures, this is what I came to learn, is that cultures deal with body odor and fragrance in different ways, depending on where you're from. And so my story is this. My first year there, we had a great Arabic teacher. We had multiple teachers, but like the main sheikh, his name was Sheikh Abdul Salam, rahimahullah. He passed away not too long ago. And he was like one of those real tidy kind of teachers. Like everything about him was tidy and orderly and put together. Like always fresh clothes, perfectly clean, new, white, ironed. Everything about him said like care and attention to detail. You know, like the beard, the mustache, the way he carried himself. He brought his own whiteboard pens, not using the ones that are supplied. He had his own personal supply of that. And as time went on, you know, he would start coming into the class and he would start reprimanding us because of the way the classroom smelled. Yes, especially as it got warmer into the year, getting closer to summer, and the bodies are together, and the juices, the whatevers are going on. You know what I'm saying? And he'd come in and he'd get like visibly upset, and he'd start going, "Aslahakumullah, may Allah rectify you. Allah rectify your situation. Say Ameen. Say Ameen." We'd all be going, "Ameen, Ameen." And then he'd give us a lesson. He's like, "Listen, brothers, you have to every day after Fajr go turn on the water." And he's using Arabic. So we're first year Arabic students. So his Arabic is super, super like simple. And he's going, "You have to turn on the water. It's free. It comes right away. In the shower, it comes up here. Stand under the water." And he'd do this. "Wash your bodies." He's like, "Soap is 1 riyal. Al-sabun biriyal." And we're all going, "Oh, like, oh my goodness." We're getting taught about hygiene. I was a little older because I'd already graduated from college. So I was like 21. I was 22. Okay. So I was a little bit older than the other like students. So I'm thinking, oh, this is kind of embarrassing. And then he goes, "And after you get out of the shower, take lemons and rub it under your armpits so that you smell fresh." And we come into the class. "What is this smell?" He would come in every time. "Ma hada, ma hada, what is this? What is this?" And so then we started to try and hone in on where that smell was coming from. And we started to realize there was a few students that had a particular perspective on body odor that wasn't shared by the majority, if you know what I'm saying. You understand what I'm saying, right? And so we started encouraging them like, "Hey, listen, we can't take much more of this mahada, you know, coming in and telling us about shower and soap. Like, bro, it's getting a little bit excessive, you know. We need you." And it was 2 guys in particular. And we started to realize like they were sharing clothes as well. Yeah, like they were like maybe roommates. They were like from the same place, and like they were swapping, you know, you just wearing, I'm saying, like just trying to share outfits. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the personal situation is. And then they're like, "Bro, are you washing the clothes? Like, what's happening?" And somebody actually went and bought a thing of deodorant. And I'm thinking, oh, problem solved. Maybe it's a money issue. Maybe like it's, we don't want to spend the money on deodorant. So the brother goes and says, "Here is some deodorant." And the guy took the deodorant. He's like, what are you giving me this for?" He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You need to put this on." And he goes, "This is for women." "What are you talking about?" "This is for women." And we're like, "For women? This is a man's deodorant." He's like, "Yeah, where I come from, women wear this. We don't wear this." And we're like, "Come on, man, the odor, it's getting a little bit much." Like, I didn't know how to articulate it, but I would have been like, dude, you're at a 5+ right now. Like you're dominating the room. Yeah. Hey, bro, 5. I'm sorry, 5 minus. We got to go negative, right? We got to go down because it's the bad, not up, down. You're at a -5 on the odor meter. That means we got to intervene. It was a literal intervention. I think the whole class was having an intervention moment before intervention was like cool to have an intervention. We were doing that in Medina, and we thought that we were going to actually like get there. And he goes, listen, then he starts giving a whole explanation. He says, listen, this stuff you're talking about, this is for where we come from. The odor that we have, this smell, it's masculine, and it takes days. It takes days to get going. And we're like, brother, no, brother. What about shower? He's like, yes. We're like, it's the sunnah to shower. He's like, yes, that's on Friday. Yeah, Ghusl on a Friday. Like, so that's a cultural element that I had not encountered prior to anything actually in my life prior to that moment. And so, yeah, that's been on my mind. I don't know why I thought about that. It all was inspired by the level 1 that I was at recently. And then I'm thinking way back to how bad that actually can get. And sometimes we will experience this in our masajid. If I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about because we live in a multicultural like communities. Most of us do at least. And sometimes there's that guy that he might be nose deaf, or maybe he's just accustomed to that odor. And she said, this is just some alpha maleness. I don't know. This might be somebody's commenting about alpha maleness. The brothers were marinated. They were certainly marinated for sure. They were marinated for like a whole week. But anyway, the guy walks in and he dominates the room with his odor. And you're like, bro, this isn't helpful, man. You know, like this is very distracting, not in a good way, in a bad way. And so that led me down kind of like a rabbit hole of sorts with fragrance and the sense of smell. And so I came across what you got to nerd out a little bit, guys. And that's what we're going to do here today, to nerd out a little bit on what we're going to call a fascinating review of an article entitled Behavioral and Neurobiological Convergence of Odor, Mood, and Emotion. That's how serious odors are. There are studies out there, and you can find this one on the National Library of Medicine. The entire article is available because sometimes the National Library of Medicine and those types of sites, they'll put things behind a wall. You know, you got to have a membership, so there's a member wall. But this one, I was able to get access to in its entirety. And when we look at it, it surveys decades of research on how smell influences the human mind. And what's remarkable, I think, about many of the conclusions is that it strikes a chord with me when you study the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and how he loved pleasant fragrances. And that's one of the lessons that we learned in Sirat al-Nabi. This book, Mukhtasar Sirat al-Nabi, by the great Imam al-Maqdisi, rahimallahu ta'ala, in the chapter about his character, in that he loved good fragrance, beautiful smelling things, and that he, alayhi salatu wasalam, always smelt very fragrant, a positive scale, I should say. And so when you look at this research, the modern neuroscience of this whole thing, it begins to talk about how pleasant smells and odors have a positive role in people's lives. So the first thing that the researchers point out is that smell is uniquely connected to emotional life. And they describe with extensive evidence that odor can influence both our emotions and our overall mood. And in some cases, without us even noticing the smell itself. Okay. And this is something that the marketing industry, okay, so I have a little bit of background in marketing by way of studies in business. The marketing industry has tapped into is smells, fragrances, aromas. And that's why they will actually intentionally have aromas in their places of business. Think about it for a minute. The last time you walked by like a Cinnabon or um, pretzel place or even some places, I mean, the obvious ones are like the candle shops, the body works shops with the lotions and the things. Those all are very fragrant, and they want those fragrances out. They don't want them bottled up. They have samples out, not only for you to smell it when you're there, but for that aroma to just like permeate the environment. And it strikes a chord with people, not just because it smells good, but because of here, it recalls emotions, moods, and memories. You get this recall. And these are often associated with like happy moments. Food is pleasure, joy, community. Those types of things are all brought out in the memory from these types of smells. The other thing that they mentioned is experiences that we've had, like pleasant fragrances. Genuinely, they say, improve our mood. Unpleasant odors tend to produce the opposite effect. And the article cites studies showing that just a few minutes to exposure of pleasant perfume can promote positive feelings, calmness, and a relaxed state, whereas the opposite, exposure to foul odors, can produce negative moods and even, they say, mild anxieties. They also talk about how smell can influence how we relate to other people. And this is where we get to that body odor part. Human body odors, they affect social preference. And this can happen in very subtle ways. Like my scenario was not such a subtle way, right? Homies are at like a 5, -5, ringing the daggone bell in the class. I mean, the odor bell is this alarm. You know what I mean? It's like a fire alarm of odorness. And they're thinking it's nice. And we're all going, no. So this, obviously, it resulted in a way in which we began to interact. This social preference, like subtle things like scents, they help shape interactions, how we deal with each other. And they discuss studies showing that the like ambient smells and fragrances, they can even influence our everyday behavior, like from food choice, as I mentioned before, purchasing decisions, what we buy, and cleaning behavior. Cleaning behaviors, how we clean our homes, and how sometimes cleaning results in a lift in mood. Because when you're cleaning, it's not just about keeping things tidy and orderly. Normally you're in there with like cleaning agents, and people have their preferred agent. You know, you got the lavender smells, you got the like lemony smells, you've got like the piney pine sol, you got like the piney type smells. And so this is what we have to think. Like those companies making those products, they're not just haphazardly putting smells like rando smells. They're like, hey, let's make a bubble gum smelling floor cleaner. Have you ever seen that? That's for kids' toothpaste. Right, because you want kids to be like excited and happy when they brush their teeth. So bubble gum would elicit that kind of mood and memory in a child. But like an adult, we're not using bubble gum flavored or aromatic bubble gum floor cleaner, but we are using those lemons, those pine sol smells. Even some people like the smell of bleach for one reason or another, because it reminds them of something. And so, you know, that's embedded in the decision-making process is how odor has an impact. Another fascinating point is that pleasant scents don't simply make us feel better, but they can encourage calmer, more positive emotional states. Right? We get back to the states here. the states, the tastes. Now we're talking about the smells. Like a summary of the studies, they show fragrances like lavender promote relaxation and reduce anxiety. Other pleasant odors consistently produce more positive emotional experience. At the same time, the authors, they said in this study that you have to be wary of like exaggerated outcomes, exaggerated claims, that it's like it should never go above and beyond on how we think odors have an impact. But my personal experience is that it can definitely change the vibes in a room, in a classroom, or in a prayer room, for example, in an office space. The other thing, and this is the last part of this study that I thought was interesting among many things they mentioned, is that fragrance has a relationship with memory. Researchers explain that the brain's smell pathways, follow me here because I'm not sure, like I envision like the smell pathway to the brain is like just shooting straight up into your brain ball. You know, it's like from your nose holes, like straight direct channel to boom, right into your brain. So like when you take a big whiff of something, it just fires right into that brain. And then it like covers the brain like a fog, it's being fumigated by whatever. So that's how I imagine my non-biological, neuropsychological mind is thinking the brain's being clouded by, fumigated by whatever you're smelling. However, the serious part of this is it's connected to what they consider the regions of the brain responsible for memory. And they repeatedly describe that this system, which is deeply involved with this part of the brain, deeply involved with remembering odors and linking them to past experiences. And that's how you can smell something and then all of a sudden you'll be transported back 10 years ago. Okay. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. Let us know in the comments. You smell something, there's a fragrance, and then all of a sudden I'm transported to a location or I'm transported to a person. I smell this thing and now all of a sudden all of these memories are running through my mind based purely on a smell. Like I'm not talking about like I'm holding somebody's article of clothing and I'm smelling it like you might like to remember somebody, maybe somebody that passed away, you're holding on to something and you smell it and you go and you have this tactile item that's clearly triggered a memory, but then you get the odor of it. I'm talking about like a random like situation where you get the smell and it takes you there, transporting you. Someone says kiss with scented fragrance as maybe a perfume. Okay. So this is exactly the type of findings that the article uncovers through the study, right? This isn't like easy reading. This is like you got to be nerdy. You got to be in the nerdy moment to get into this, and you got to be able to make this connection. And the connection that I'm making here about fragrance, as I introduced, is that the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, was a man of good fragrance, beautiful odor. And I think this leads us to a greater appreciation, like looking at the psychological and biological elements of the study. It helps us, maybe helps some of us better understand the wisdom behind the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraging pleasant odors and constantly concerned with pleasant fragrance. Because we just saw from our modern studies, it's kind of like, this is the kind of thing, I always think like modern studies are catching up with the wisdom of our beloved Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, catching up with some of the, not discovering everything, of course, but catching up with some of the revelation and its application in the life of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. So affecting your emotional state, affecting the environment around you, the people that you meet, your social engagements. This issue of fragrance is an act of refinement, number one, right? Because when you're dealing with perfumes and fragrances, this is like your etiquette and your manners. So this is like refinement. This is consideration of other people. And of course, underneath all of it, as we can see at a very like physiological sense, it's a beautiful expression of the fitrah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created within us, that we have this reaction to pleasant odors. Yeah. How are we feeling about that? What are we thinking? Hopefully you're thinking, I need to get my Thebe game up a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, so we got a bottle of something here, frankincense right here, and they mentioned this. They mentioned this fragrance, I believe. This is an essential oil here, frankincense, frankincense and myrrh. That's like biblical, isn't it? It's a biblical like odor or fragrance. So this is where I'm going with it. So we can get a little bit more. We can make some better. I think we can make some better connections. We can make some deeper connections. You thought we were going to stop there and do something else, but no, we're not. We're not going to stop there. We're going to like continue to unearth the world of odors. And I think no better place to turn than to one of the great Hanbali scholars, Ibn Muflih Shamsuddin, rahimahullah ta'ala. Before we look at him, because Alif's going to queue up some supplies for us, we're going to want to travel to Damascus again. So we're going to need that. And then I also sent you something that'll come up after the Damascus thing. We're going to be visiting around the world once again, as we like to do, to make these connections with the world around us. So Ibn Muflih, this great Hanbali scholar, he authors, has multiple works, but the one that we're looking at today is called al-Adab al-Shariyya al-Kubra. And I brought the particular volume that I'm after today. This is volume number 3 in my print. This is a 5-volume book on adab, which is about manners and etiquettes. I mean, what are we doing with 5 volumes? Like that. The Prophet, this is the deal. The Prophet, he says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتِمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He says, I've only been sent to perfect noble manners. Another narration, salih al-akhlaq, righteous manners. And so if that was one of the priorities of the Prophet's mission, then there's no doubt we're going to have a legacy, a tremendous and very rich legacy of prophetic manner. And Ibn Muflih, he captures that in this work of his. And this is like what we would consider an encyclopedia on etiquette and manners. Right? So we don't need Miss Manners to tell us how to sit at the table. We don't need those protocols that they used to print in the newspapers, at least, and circulate. We've had these for decades. We've had these since the time of our beloved alayhi salatu wasalam. So within this book, the great Imam Ibn Muflih, he has a chapter dedicated to this topic. And so you thought maybe I was being weird about it, but he's got like a chapter that it's like over 15 pages of scholarly presentation, of narrations, etc., all about fragrance. And he begins the chapter, he says that pleasant fragrance, listen to this, so we can really appreciate the role here, because he takes it beyond. You would imagine our masters, spiritual masters, our religious teachers and leaders, they're always going to be coming from a place of faith. He says that pleasant fragrance plays a role in preserving health. And believe it or not, he presents this chapter. This is like a subchapter. This is like a section within a larger chapter. Where do you think the chapter is? What do you think the main chapter is? Like the main chapter, then the fragrance is there. Cleanliness. What would you imagine? Michael's here, by the way, and we got another Michael. I'm surrounded by the Michaels. Michael Kangaju is here from and I know your parents are from South Africa and Sierra Leone. Yeah. Okay. And Haitian. Yeah. Okay. So oh, sweet. So we got some, and of course, Alif is there. And we all know our beloved Alif behind the screen there, making things happen for us. We got a couple guests. And I'm sure that you have some cultural stories about fragrance and odors. You do, right? Yeah? Think of one. And you have one? Michael, Haitian Michael? This is Haitian Michael. Yeah. Yeah. And can't get you over here. All right, think about those. And we might come back to that if we have time. All right. So he says, oh, what was the question? The question is, where do you imagine this would be in the book? They said cleanliness, and you said the way you're perceived. Okay. Believe it or not, this is under the chapter about medicine and medicating. Yes. Yes. Can you imagine? Because they considered fragrances to be medicinal. Listen to this. It's not just, as he says, plays a role in preserving health. This is hifth al-sihha, which is health, but also it's physically medicinal. But he says, فَإِنَّهَا غِذَاءُ الرُّوحِ, because it is nourishment to the ruh, the spirit. So there's a level here, like it's basically nourishing the spirit and preserving one's health. And the spirit, he says, is the vehicle through which the body's faculties operate. So fragrance here is directly connected to ar-ruh. We've been on a journey, a spiritual journey. We're on a spiritual journey here. We've been trying to develop spiritual capacity and grow in that direction. And so this is one of, according to our Shaykh here, Ibn Muflih, is one of the tools, I guess, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us to help maintain spiritual health, promote spiritual health. The vehicle through which the body's faculties operate is the ruh. Those faculties are strengthened, he says, by fragrance. It benefits the body's internal organs, such as the brain and the heart. Now we're looking at some physiological stuff according to the great Imam, and he has obviously working with what their medicine was involved with. And that's important for us to remember, that we always love to celebrate Muslim invention and exploration in different fields of study like medicine and things of that nature. And they had a whole system they were working with. And the Muslims, by the way, didn't just like invent medicine and things, but they helped develop it further. And so some of the like medical terms and frameworks, they were not like unique to the Muslims, but they were shaping thought and bringing in a spiritual level and layer to a lot of that as well. So this is where we get with this. He says, nothing is more agreeable to the spirit or more perfectly suited to its nature than a pleasant fragrance. And so then he mentions some narrations. The Prophet ﷺ's love of fragrance. He first mentions that Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu reported that the Prophet ﷺ would perfume himself with aloes wood. Yeah, I didn't know what that word was. It's al-oud. We've heard of oud before. Okay, that's a type of fragrance, sometimes mixed with camphor. And then he cites the narration of Aisha radiallahu anha that the Prophet ﷺ would perfume himself with musk and ambergris. We're going to get to that. We got a story. We got a story for you today about this particular fragrance. Ambergris. Ambergris or ambergris? I've heard it pronounced Ambergris. Ambergris. Yeah. I think you're right. Ambergris. Ambergris. Very good. Ambergris or ambergris? Gris. Ambergris. Pull up. Let's see some dictionary pronunciations. Ambergris. Okay, is that the American version? Okay, it says American pronunciation because we don't want the Canadian pronunciation. That's for sure. Yeah. Nah. Okay, just go. What does it say? Ambergris?
Ambergris.
Okay, ambergris. If you're from Britain, if you're tuning in from the UK, bruv, it's ambergris. So you don't get ambergris. So you don't get amber. So you don't pronounce the R. Amber. No, you do. Amber. The first R you don't pronounce. Ambergris. Amber. That one you say amber. Ambergris. I apologize. The Michaels are here. Okay? Yeah. Let's jump back into this. Guys, chill out, man. Relax yourselves. Listen. So this is what it says, that he himself has reported, we got Ode there, Aisha radiallahu anhu, Ummul Mu'mineen, our beloved mother of the believers, said the Prophet ﷺ would perform himself with musk and ambergris, and that she would perfume himself with this, and she perfumed him with both, or with musk, before he would enter into ihram. Right, so we know that tib is you can't use that when you're in ihram. However, you are permitted to use it prior to entering into the state of ihram. Something that you can do, like when you take a ghusl, that's a recommendation. You can apply certain fragrances. And this is important because here when they talk about tib is not just any fragrance, by the way. Like, tib or perfumes are specific to what they called perfumes, not like just fragrances in general. Right? So that's something that you would find in the works of the fuqaha, or they would catalog what tib actually constituted and what wasn't considered tib. So in the event that you had some fragrance, it just wasn't of this category, then you weren't actually violating your ihram. However, he would put it on prior to, and she would apply after completing ihram. The famous quote also from the hadith of Anas radiallahu anhu, he said, this is a report from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Hubbiba ilayya min ad-dunya an-nisa'u wat-tib wa ju'ilat qurratu 'ayni fi as-salah." Famous hadith, among the things of this worldly life that have been made beloved to me are women and pleasant fragrance, while the coolness of my eye has been placed in prayer. Very famous hadith. And then he cites a narration from the Prophet ﷺ, who says, "Man urida alayhi tibun fala yaruddahu." Whoever is offered tib or perfume, you should not decline it. فَإِنَّهُ خَفِيفُ الْمَحْمَلِ, because it's very light to carry, right? طَيِّبُ الرَّائِحَةِ, and delightful in its fragrance. He narrates another, كَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ لَا يَرُدُّ الطِّيبِ, that the Prophet would never reject tib. Now, this is where I think we got to pump the brakes, because I've had more than one person come to me and offer tib. But mu tayyib. Tib mu tayyib, right? It's like tib, but it's not good. It's like not tib. Tib is good. Like tib is like nice. But when it's not nice, you put me in a bad situation. You put me in a hardship. I mean, because now I got to, and you know, you can kind of get a vibe. You can smell it coming your way. And I was like, oh, it's that one. I don't know what to do. I just have to say no. You know what I mean? Oh, thank you. Secondhand sleeve. I'm like, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Jazakallah khair. Regarding musk, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Huwa atyabu tibikum," that musk is the finest of your fragrances. And then I think we could wrap it up with the narrations, because there are many that he mentions here. From Ibn Muflih, he states, this is a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. He says, this goes back to my story, "Ghusl al-Jum'ah wajib." Taking a ghusl on Friday is wajib ala kulli muhtalimi, on every person of that's reached puberty, basically. So the washing was siwak, then the miswak, وأن تمس من طيب ما يقدر عليه, and then to apply whatever fragrance he's able to obtain. So here you can see a tremendous concern about fragrances and perfumes within the life of the Prophet ﷺ. Ibn Muflih closes this discussion with a beautiful reflection. He says that the angels love pleasant fragrances and are offended by foul odors, just as it's mentioned in the narrations concerning onions, garlic, and leeks. We understand, like, the Prophet ﷺ warned us from coming to the masjid after having eaten those foods, because you're going to be coming in with the odor meter registering beyond a 1. You're going to hit a 2 or a 3. You might hit a 4, depending on how much raw onion or garlic or etc. that you've consumed. And we can extend, I think it's possible to extend this out to things that are unpleasant odors, you know, like, I don't want to point anybody out with any one particular thing, but I want you to be a little bit creative and think about foul odors. And you're entering into a space of prayer. And we're trying to create an atmosphere in our masajid to where, like, um, the mood is relaxed. It's pleasant. You're setting you like, this is the thing that I think. I think that we're at such a state in our world, in our era, that we need all the help that we can get to curate an environment that encourages deep reflection and moments in prayer. Right? So, like, having unpleasant odors, having distraction on the walls, having loud noises, kids running amok in the masjid, like turning it, like just totally turning it into a fun zone, a play zone during prayer time. And then somebody, when you say something, somebody always says, well, the Prophet ﷺ had one time Al-Hassan al-Hussein on his back and he was carrying them, and you should have more khushu in your prayer and things like that. And I'm going, listen, that was not the norm. That was not the normal environment. If that was a one-off here and there, we got patience. We can deal with a one-off. But like regularly occurring, what environments are we creating for our prayers? And then we complain, oh, I've lost khushu. I can't seem to focus. I can't seem to concentrate. Well, are we taking the steps that can help facilitate a moment of emotionality and reflection and depth? And here's one of those things. On top of the fact that we're talking about the angels, we're wanting angels to surround our lives in a good way, and an odor is pleasant. A pleasant odor is pleasant to them. An unpleasant odor is unpleasant to them. And then he says, Ibn Muflih, he says, and the devils, may Allah curse them, are the very opposite. Yeah, that means they don't like pleasant odors. They do like foul odors. So that adds another layer, does it not, to the unseen and how odors impact? Do you want to be inviting shayateen? Or do you want to be inviting al-malaika? I have a feeling you would say we don't want shayateen surrounding our lives, right? So the odors are one of the things that are important to take into consideration. The Prophet ﷺ was reported to say, "Inna Allah tayyibun yuhibbu at-tayyib." That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is tayyib. We could say like pure and loves pure things. Nadhifun yuhibbu nadafa. Like this is like cleanliness. He loves cleanliness. Kareemun yuhibbu al-karam. He's generous and loves generosity. Jawadun yuhibbu al-jud. Bountiful and loves bounty. Or like, this is also like a form of giving. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, فَنَظِّفُوا. He says, so therefore clean, afniyatakum wasahatikum, clean your courtyards and surroundings. Clean your areas. This is prophetic instruction and manner to keep things clean and tidy. And so here, when I was reading over this section in the book, I want to go back a step to that idea that Ibn Muflih draws our attention to, that fragrance, it's somehow just really matches with the ruh. Fragrance, it's kind of like speaks to the ruh in a way. Okay, like that's what you're really after. Like everything else is great, because when you put on Tleeb, you have on good fragrance, you're being generous because you know that other people are going to experience you. Okay, now if they experience you at a 0, neutral, we're good. No harm, no foul. We're like plain, blank canvas. Now I can begin to sense who you are, but you got to help me, right? You got to help me out, figure out, sense what's your personality, how do you interact, what's your etc. But if you come into me with like a -1 or a -2, you know what I'm saying? Like in the bad odor department, right away, my initial reaction is to recoil. I'm like, whoa, okay. I can give you the benefit of the doubt once, twice. But after that, now my interactions are going to be like, bro, what's happening? But if you come to me like for the first time, imagine this, my first, what do they call that? First impression? What do they say? You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. The first impression, you come to me with a +1. I meet you, I shake your hand, you smell pleasant. After I've shook your hand, and then that pleasant fragrance is now on my hand. That's generosity. Is it not? Now I have something that's like, oh, I might Tabarruk, you know what I mean? Dudes, listen. If you've been watching Imam Eid, Safwan Eid, he has been talking about economics. What's he been talking about? Economics of barakah. Economies of barakah. That was one of his recent shows. Elif, am I missing something? No, that was the previous one. Economies of sugar. He talked about shukr and zuhud, but I did tune in, and he was talking about economies of barakah. He was talking about how, like, like modern economies, a lot of them are stripped of the barakah because the quality of things goes down, the price goes up, all those types of things. So the barakah is for real, and that's going to be, if we're interested, and this is, you guys can give me some feedback if you're interested. I'm thinking we need so we had economies of barakah. I think we need communities of tabarruk. I think we need that episode. Communities of tabarruk. So that would be an additional point to me getting a good fragrance. It could be a potential like encouragement, a tabarruk bihi, especially if he's somebody righteous. And now I've got this tib. There's a connection because you can do that with tib of the Kaaba. Tabarruk bi tib al-Kaaba. So there's an actual point of debate about that. Like, can you go to the Kaaba, and because the Kaaba is always perfumed, and that's been the way that it's perfumed. So can you go to the Kaaba and seek to wipe off the tib of the Kaaba for the purpose of tabarruk, seeking the barakah? So can you do that? So the Hanbali view is this. The tib of the Kaaba is placed there as a waqf. It's an endowment, and it can't be removed. You're not allowed to go and wipe the perfume of the Kaaba off, lit tabarruk. But you are allowed to take your own supply of tib, apply it to the Kaaba, and then take it. Lit tabarruk. Back to the tib, right here. So there's a connection. We're making these. These might be loose. Look, I don't think I'm pushing the boundaries like very far. I'm just trying to rope things together for us to like bring it all into like a beautifully woven tapestry, okay, of spiritual fragrance and delight and taste. So tib and the Kaaba, lil baraka, the great odors that you're getting, all of that stuff, which brings me back to this idea of first impressions, how it mixes with you and the soul. This is where I wanted to go. I had to take a minute. Sorry, we had to reroute. It was like rerouting. That's what that was. That was the GPS rerouting because we went far off. Like we took too many far off turns. We had to reroute, and now we're back locked in, I think. Inshallah. We're locked in. We're back on route. And that is, look at how the ruh is described. The ruh is described as jism latif. It's what they call a subtle body. That's how you would translate it. It's a subtle body, meaning that the ruh, the spirit, it's not like material flesh and bone, but it's latif, it's subtle. And do you know that's exactly how perfume is? Perfume is not like it's not so much about the material of it, because there certainly is a material there, but the real essence of fragrance is about the odor. It's like this. It feels to me like there's a relation between Because when you're applying perfume to the body, that's where you're applying it to the flesh, and that's the actual tangible element of the tib. But what is resonating with the ruh is the fragrance, and that fragrance has a jism to it. It's latif. And so here, it seems that this connection, for me, it just makes sense. I mean, it feels like it just goes like hand in hand. That perfume, as is described by Ibn Muflih. So this is very fascinating, that the perfumers in their industries, they talk about fragrance in similar languages. They talk about fragrance, like fragrance being very real, but the fragrance itself is not something you can hold in your hand. Like the actual material you can, but that smell, you can't hold that. You know, they say like bottle that up. Like when you like something like we could bottle that up, that odor. You're like, but can you? Can you really capture that? Like, can you hold on to it? It's like the ruh. Okay. So here the perfumers, they also speak about perfume as having a body, having heart notes. This is like the technical terms of the perfumer's world. There's a body to it. And I'm not that much into it. That's why I said I got to get my tib game up a little bit better. But they have a body to it. They have notes to it. They talk about first impressions, right? So they have notes like the first note and the second note. It's like the first odor that hits you, and then there's like this second layer to it that hits you again. And then they talk about projection of it, like how it is, how it extends. Where does it extend? Like, it's wild because I feel like there's these connections that you can make with the ruh. They speak about longevity with perfumes and fragrances, the length and their presence that they linger behind. And so this is basically where we could perhaps make some connections with why Ibn Muflih is saying that tib has such a role in the vitality, maybe, of the ruh. Now, I'm not saying fragrance and the ruh are the same. No, these are totally different categories. But there is definitely a correlation according to the great Shamsuddin ibn Muflih. So we're wondering here, basically, the affinity between the ruh and the tib. And that's why he said that pleasant fragrance is nourishment for the spirit. Nourishment for the spirit. And you note that he didn't begin with it's nourishment for the brain or for the heart. He started right there with the spirit. And I think that's intentional. Great imams like this, they write things very intentional and in order. So whether or not that's like a good reflection or not, whether that we could say that's like, I'm not trying to make like this is a nos here, okay? But this is a scholarly reflection on the world of the ruh and the world of tib and its collision. It's like the crossroads of the two. And so I think at this point, it's important here that we take a little break from this segment. We are going to come back. We're not done nerding out on the topic, but we can travel now to, where did we want to go? We wanted to queue up. Alif, are we queued up, bro? Damascus, yes, sir. We want to queue. He's ready. Look at Alif's he's on top of it today, like he normally is. And I'm watching him cook right now, right in front of me on the screen. It's gourmet, people. So listen to this. Ibn Muflih, I introduced this name, but I didn't like give you any background. That's what we need to learn about our scholars. This is important. Listen, you know, we're learning about the Prophet ﷺ, again, available for purchase. Bingo. You can do that today if you needed to, right? Selling our wares. Yeah. As much as we're learning about the Prophet ﷺ, we are a part of a scholarly tradition. The inheritance of the Prophet is through the scholars. That's what the Prophet ﷺ said. And so to learn about who our scholars were, what they did, their qualities, it draws us in and gets us closer to that inheritance of the prophetic way. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at who is Ibn Muflih, the great Hanbali scholar. His name, Muhammad ibn Muflih al-Maqdisi. Al-Maqdisi. So he's like a 14th century Hanbali scholar who was born in Let me see here. Double check this. No, he passed away in 763, born in 712. That's like 1312 of the AD. Okay. And al-Maqdisi is Bayt al-Maqdis. So we're talking about Jerusalem. Okay. So he was born in Jerusalem, Bayt al-Maqdis. This is where we want to visit now, into a family whose roots went back to the village of Ramin. Ramin. And this is near Nablus. So let's see if we can pull that up on the map and get a closer look. Bayt al-Maqdis, you want to look for Nablus. Nablus is in and around Jerusalem. Yes, here we go. We got Nablus pulled up. And we're trying to like identify. All right, are we seeing? Yeah, we're seeing this on the screen. We can see this. Looks like old world engineering. Old world civil engineering. We do have some roundabouts. Nice looking place. Got some greenage. Looks good. So what we're trying to identify is a neighborhood or a village called Ramin. Ramin. I'm not sure if that's going to be still around today or not. And I didn't do my homework and trying to look this up prior to coming here. So we're doing this on the fly. All right. So Nablus, Ramin. Yeah. Let's see what happens. They're going to give us. Yes. Ramin is oh, dude, let's hit the factoids. What factoids we got? There we go. Sweet. It says Ramin is a Palestinian village in the northeastern West Bank, located 15 kilometers of Tulkarm, if I'm pronouncing that right, in the Tulkarm governorate of the state of Palestine, according to the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics. The village had a population of approximately 1,000. Is that what? Am I reading that right? About 2,000 people. Yeah. In 2017. Okay, so that's a small village. Let's see. Let's check out the picture. Ramin. There's the village. Cool. All right, zoom in a little bit. Let's try and see what we got. It looks like it's kind of on a hill. Does that look like a hill to you? Topography map? Is it topography or topography? Topography. But I'm thinking top because it's like the top of that Joan. You know what I mean? It's the topography. Yeah. It's the topography. Sorry. Ooh, okay, cool. Can we get a Google man out there? No Google men. I don't think they let Google cars in. That's the West Bank. They're not letting Googles in. Yeah. They're holding the border pretty hard. Look, we got some farmland out there, some trees. All right, let's zoom out. Like go out like so we can see where we are in relation to everything else. All right, where's Jerusalem at? Okay, so we're north of Jerusalem. There's Nablus right there. Okay, so that's exact. So I think we've correctly identified that village, Ramin. That's the Arabic spelling of it. I don't know if that's still how they pronounce it today. Ramin is the village close to Nablus, and then settled later in al-Shariyya. So born in Jerusalem, family roots are in Ramin near Nablus. So he was born in Jerusalem. His family probably migrated from Ramin. I got to do a little more digging into that. And then they settled in al-Shariyya. So we got to go to Damascus at this point. Damascus, Shariyya. And we've been there before. And guess what? We're going to keep going back to Damascus because the Hanabila, this is like one of the hubs in Damascus, primarily in Shariyya. And that is next to Jebel Qasiyun. Jebel Qasiyun, of course, is the mountain there in Damascus. There you go, Jebel Qasiyun. You can see that. I have a life goal, and I want you guys at Safina Society to keep me accountable to this. Is I want to climb Mount Qasiyun. Yeah, that's the life goal. That's on the list of things to do. I have to visit Syria in order to find my retirement spot because we're going to go. That's my other plan. I'm letting you, I don't know why I'm sharing this. Should we gatekeep the plan? After 600, after episode. Okay. All right. Michael says gatekeep my retirement plan until after episode 600. That might be worth it. Let's do that. We won't derail too far. All right. Let's stay on track, people. I'm not sharing my retirement plan with you yet. When I do, you can maybe consider joining me in retirement, inshallah. Mount Qasiyun. What does retirement mean these days anyway? Can anyone retire? Is anyone retiring anymore? The 1% might be retiring, but the rest of us, average Joes and below, are not retiring anytime soon. You got to keep on working out there. Got to pay that tax dollar. All right, so let's check it out. Let's zoom out at it, please. Come on, dude. Off of the socials. Let's get back on the cuts. I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you, man. I'm messing with you, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Why am I messing with Adam? He's doing the producing here. Oh, I'm so bad. Okay, cool. Yeah, he's working. My bad. Okay, zoom into Salihiyya. You can find it. Yeah. Salihiyya is close to Qasiyun. You can type it in. Type it in the search bar. But yeah, Salihiyya, Damascus. There it is. Oh yeah. Damascus has this region called a Salihiyya. We've talked about this place before. We've talked about this with Imam al-Wasti. We've talked about it with al-Maqdisi. What happened? Retirement is a bid'ah. Oh, that's one of our comments. Michael, by the way, Michael Kengaju is monitoring the comments. So he's flagging if you got wild comments, he's definitely flagging those for me. All right, and I'm going to tune into that. Retirement is bid'ah. You know what? In our economy, fiqh of economics is definitely a bid'ah for sure, right? And when I mean retirement, I mean the worst kind of bid'ah ever. My retirement plan has to do with that, where I just want to go and retire in terms of paying money to the state. Okay, I want to dedicate some time to like preparing for Nuzul Isa alayhi salam. Why am I, oh, I'm just telegraphing. I'm telegraphing my whole retirement plan. What have I just done? Dude, I don't know. We're just building we're just building suspense, man. Giving people something to look forward to, man. Come on. There it is. Hanbali Masjid. Zoom in right there. That's where we go, because that's where Ibn Muflih ends up in that region. The Hanabila, this is where they built up the community of Salihiyya. Again, prior to al-Maqdisi, prior to al-Maqdisi, this region was like, it was like on the outskirts of town, and it was not like the good side of town. It was kind of like a wasteland, and it was a place that was subject to criminality. Okay, so there's the Majami al-Hanabila. Again, we've looked at this prior to this stream. We're looking at it again. Here we are, because it plays such a central role in the scholarship of the Hanabila, especially of this era. It's still there today. It's one of the oldest masjids of Damascus, by the way. Still there, operating, and mashayikh are teaching out of that place. So anyway, Ibn Muflih, he's there, migrates to Salihiyya, and to the famous scholarly quarter there at the slopes of Mount Qasiyun, which overlooks Damascus. He studies there. He teaches there. This is where he issues legal verdicts, wrote major works. Eventually, he ends up becoming the deputy to the chief judge of the Hanbalis. All right, he lived quite a, I don't want to say like a long life, because he passes away in 763 in the month of Rajab, just over 50 or 51 years of age. So, all right, that's nice. Scrolling around. This is what it looks like today. There's the masjid. Okay, what is this that you're doing? Okay, so what is this? Google Earth? What are you using, Google Earth? Or still on maps? There was. Okay, there was a view. So this is the aerial view of Jem al-Hanabila. You can see the courtyard, and there's a fountain in the middle of it right there. Looks like they got some solar panels. A couple solar panels happening, maybe for neighboring houses. Maybe the masjid's using solar. We're going green, and it's, you know, Islam is about green, right? It's the green color. We should be going green. We should be doing more green things in our lives, not just love of the Prophet and green, not just thinking about greenery in Janna, green birds of paradise. We're thinking about going green as well. So solar panels it speaks to my heart. Yeah, that's nice. 51 years approximately. And they said that when when his funeral was held, in attendance were judges, leading scholars, and dignitaries from across Damascus. He was buried near the great Hanbali Imam Muwaffiquddin ibn Qudama, buried next to or close to Ibn Qudama. You can look that up if you wanted to, Alif. The Mashhad ibn Qudama, or the grave, the burial site, there's a chamber. And you can see like the burial mound, if memory serves correct. While you're doing that, his life as a great scholar, it happened during a very interesting time in Islamic history because just over 50 years before he was born, this is when the Mongols had sacked Baghdad, 656. This is also prior to Imam al-Wasi's birth, Maduddin, who wrote about the Mongols a little bit. And this essentially brought an end to the Abbasid dynasty, or the caliphate of the Abbasids. And after that, this is when the Mamluk era began, and Ibn Muflih basically grew up and lived beyond the Abbasid dynasty and now in the Mamluk era. And when in Damascus, even during that time, it continued to be an intellectual capital of Islam. And because of that, the scholars from all over the place, they would travel there, as did our Sheikh Ibn Muflih. The city flourished with madaris. There were many schools, like many madrasas. So the madrasa system is kind of like our system. When I mean like the Muslim system is based on a madrasa system. They had many Darul Hadith institutions, libraries, circles of learning. So like the university model, like that did exist because we understand like early university development. But I believe the university model developed out of the madrasa system. And the madrasa system was often like a sheikh in the masjid, and he was the head of a madrasa. Like he carried the madrasa, and people would come and they would sit in the circles. They would be trained, and they would get to the point where now they would become like a mu'in, an assistant to the sheikh, or a mu'id, like someone that would repeat his lessons. And then the assistant part, the mu'in, would now be able to do a bit more. And then eventually they would reach a point where the sheikh would like graduate them, and they would now begin essentially teaching. They would take up a teaching post. And this is how the madrasa system, or they would be appointed, like they would have these appointments that they would take over a madrasa, and they would basically be the ones carrying that madrasa through its life. And they would be visiting sheikhs, visiting scholars. They would come, they would give lessons. And the madrasa system was flourishing during this time, the time of Ibn Muflih. And so, like, for example, during this time period, Ibn Muflih, by the way, was in the study circles of Ibn Taymiyyah, Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, wa radiya anhum ajma'in. So you could go study, for example, with Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. You could go take a hadith lesson with Shaykh al-Mizzi. You could go learn from Imam al-Dhahabi, who was also alive during that time. Imam al-Dhahabi, the great historian, scholar of hadith. You could study tafsir with Ibn Kathir. Yes. Imagine that. Like, these are our, like, the scholars of that era. These are our celebrated scholars of that era. And so it was in this environment. These were the scholars that were alive during that time. So it wasn't like, you know, like, it wasn't like, for example, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah was there, and then like he passes away, then Ibn Muflih comes up and then he passes away, then Imam that. No, they're all connected together. And they were all in this environment together, learning from each other and transmitting and spreading the knowledge. So I think you found what we're looking for, right? Ibn Qudama's, his burial site. So we take a look at that. So here you can see, this is what Muwaffiquddin ibn Qudama's al-Maqdisi, this is what his burial site looks like. So you can see there's a chamber, right? We're looking at a mound. It's obviously been plastered, and there is some like material on top of it. Green. We were talking about green all this time, right? And then there's some Looks like some carpeting around it. We talked about this before, plastering and things like that. There are specific rulings to this, which we could get into in another episode if people are interested. However, this is what it looks like. And this is often how those graves were treated in that particular region, right? They weren't leveled. They weren't made to disappear. But there was some level of preservation, as should be. Like, you want to know where a grave is. At least it should be identifiable as a grave so that you're not standing on it. You're not trashing it, right? And so this was where Ibn Muflih was buried, next to the great Imam Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi rahimahullah ta'ala. So back to Ibn Muflih and his scholarship, not just his life trajectory, but his scholarship. And if you're into Hanbalism as a madhab, then once you get your foot in the door, however that may be, whatever pathway that is, the name Ibn Muflih is one of the first that you will encounter. Because Ibn Muflih, Shamsuddin, rahimahullah, he wasn't just like a jurist, but he was regarded as one of the foremost authorities of the school in his generation. Ibn al-Qayyim, rahimahullah ta'ala, was reported to have said that there is no one beneath the canopy of the heavens more knowledgeable of the madhab of Imam Ahmad than Ibn Muflih. What's that saying? What does that say to you? Everyone knows, and many people celebrate Ibn al-Qayyim among the Hanbali and beyond milieu, but that's extraordinary praise. His own teacher, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he had a very memorable way of praising Ibn Muflih. Ibn Muflih, by the way, the son of, because his first name Muhammad, Shamsuddin Muhammad Ibn Muflih. Muhammad, the son of Muflih. And Muflih means what? Muflih means, it's like from falah, success. Nice. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. Right? Successful are the believers. So Ibn Muflih is the son of the success, or like the one who's successful. And he was known as Ibn Muflih. But Ibn Taymiyyah used to say that in praise of him, you are not Ibn Muflih, you are Muflih. You're not the son of success, you are success. He says, Ma anta Ibn Muflih. You're not the son of Muflih, anta Muflih. You are Muflih yourself. Basically, you're not merely the son of success, but you are the embodiment of it. That was the level of scholarship that he was blessed with. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitating and opening the way for him in such a tremendous manner. So not only praised by his own peers due to scholarship, but Ibn Muflih was also praised for his piety, his humility, his zuhud, his wara, his scrupulousness, and his upright character. And he became known as perhaps the greatest authority within that school of his age. He had an astonishing memory. One of his teachers remarked that he knew of no scholar in any of the four schools who possessed more material by heart, like who had memorized as much as he did, Ibn Muflih, that is. So that was what he was blessed with by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's another detail. If you have that other image, Alif, it's the manuscript here. We'll pull this up. Another interesting detail that I would share with you about Ibn Muflih is, and I find this especially interesting, is that latter scholars, they preserved a chain of transmission. And you can find this. Like the great Imams, even until today, the chains of transmission for their madhabs is intact. And you can be awarded a chain of transmission back to Imam Ahmad. You can be awarded a chain of transmission back to Imam al-Shafi'i, for example, and so on and so forth for the madhab. And there's a chain of transmission that Ibn Muflih is in. It's reported, and this chain of transmission combines Hanbali fiqh and the Qadiri spiritual path. Right. It's a tariqa al-Qadiriyya. Right. So this is the Sufi path of a Sheikh Qutb al-Aqtab. We've talked about him before. And I think Dr. Shadi has actually had an entire series on a Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, al-Baz al-Ashhab, they call the Gray Falcon. So this chain of transmission here, Elif is working it for you right now to pull it up. You can see in this, Ibn Muflih, his name is actually documented among the chain of scholars. So that the tradition was typically within the Hanbali school that you would have the fiqh of Imam Ahmad and the aqidah. So there's aqidah Hanbaliya, okay? And then many of the great imams adopted the tariqa Qadiriyya in tasawwuf, in the Sufi way. All right. So here you're looking at a manuscript of this very chain. So if you're watching now, you see at the top of the line it says Silsilatul Fiqh al-Hanbali ajaztahu ma'a tariqa al-Qadiriyya. All right. So that's in the red. Silsilatul Fiqh al-Hanbaliyya. I think it says ajaztuhu. That's what makes sense to me. I'm not like a real good manuscript reader. It's a bit of a study to it. Like it's a skill you have to develop, reading the handwriting, especially the way that it was captured during that time. After it says ma'a tariqa al-Qadiriyya, you can see that, the Qadiri way. And then it begins to list names. On the second line, you'll note somebody there, Badruddin al-Balbani, Ibn Balban, right? Here, Ibn Balban right here. We've talked about him. Al-Adab al-Iqyan is the book that we teach at ArcView for Hanbali Aqidah. He's the author of that summary of Ibn Hamdan's Aqidah. He's there. So what does that mean about Ibn Balban? Hanbali in fiqh and Qadiri in tasawwuf. Sufi. Whoa. You're like, whoa. This got interesting. This just took another level. Wait a minute. Hanbali Sufi? What? What? Is that a thing? Is that a thing, guys? I'm telling you right here. I'm showing you the evidence. That's a thing. Because I understand that there is like it's like a view. It's like it's like an association. There's this association of recoil with Hanbali Sufi. No. These were married. These were married. Like this was I quoted from you. We were reading from Imam al-Bahuti al-Khalwati. I was reading from that last time when I read al-Khalwati's his Bulghatul Sadiq or his Manasik. The title escapes my memory. I was reading from his book on the Manasik al-Hajj. Al-Khalwati. Do you know Khalwati, what that is? Bahuti is the place of birth or origin. That's the city. Khalwati is the Sufi order, al-Khalwatiyya. So he belonged to al-Khalwatiyya. Yeah. Yeah. What else we have? Badruddin al-Balbani is there. He's basically where it starts from the person that's relating this chain. It goes through Badruddin al-Balbani. Ibn Balban, I think he even spells that out himself in his own writings, because when they would sign their name, they would add all that al-Hanbali, al-Qadiri, al-Dimishqi, etc. He spells that out himself. So it's of no surprise. It's not like this has unearthed that reality for us. It's just emphasizing it. If you go down a couple of lines, you know who else you'll find there? You'll find al-Sahib al-Furu'. This is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. If you go down 5 lines, you start going over. Stop right there. Sahib al-Furu'. You can see al-Furu' is Shamsuddin ibn Muhlih's book. That's what he's known for, is al-Furu'. So he's the author there. If you keep going further, it goes through his family lineage a bit. Do you know who else is mentioned here? Ibn Taymiyyah. Yes. With the silsila back to al-Qadiriyya, al-Tariqa al-Qadiriyya. Okay, so this was pretty commonplace among the Hanabila, in that they would adopt the way of, I can see Muwaffaq ibn Qudama. That's known. I mean, that's well known. Listen, if this is the deal, if anyone was the epitome of a Hanbali Sufi, it was Ibn Qudama. His name is right there. It's kind of in the middle of the thing, a little bit lower. Ibn Qudama. We just looked at his grave. And when you read through his works, you can get the sense of it. You can get the sense of it in his own writings. Even if he's writing about fiqh or writing about aqidah, you'll get the sense of it. And in his other works as well. So that I thought would be an interesting addition to the episode on Nothing But Facts, because I brought the historical evidence to show you the factual nature of where Ibn Muflih, he was positioned within his scholarly tradition. Not only a great imam in fiqh, but also included in the spiritual tradition of the Hanabila in general. And I'm not saying that all the Hanbalis were Qadiris. I just showed you Imam al-Khalwati was from the Khalwatiyya. And you'll find that, guess what? There are other Hanbalis that come later that are from a Naqshbandiyya. They're from that particular tariqah. They belong to that like tradition of the Sufi way. So you'll find that most of them, they adopted some form of spiritual path, which they would proudly take their position within the ranks of those great pious sages. So again, looking at his legacy in terms of what he wrote and what he left behind, a tremendous commentary on al-Muqni', the encyclopedia al-Furu', that's like a legal encyclopedia. That has become such a foundational reference within the Hanbali school. It's a place that you go to check to better understand what the mu'tamid of the madhab actually is, to expound upon things. It's one of the references that is utilized in that process, and it's still studied until today. He's also authored works on legal theory. And then we get to this book, al-Adab al-Shariyya. Here, this one's called al-Kubra. This book that I have brought in for show and tell. This we could say, like I mentioned before, is the Hanbali encyclopedia of everyday Muslim life. And it goes far beyond just manners. It gathers together everything related to the believer's life, from cleanliness, we talked about, family life, neighbors, friendships, eating, dress, speech, travel, worship, medicine, which is where we find Thlib, character, personal refinement. There are countless other topics in the book, 5 volumes. You can imagine it's quite extensive. And he draws upon the Quran, of course, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And Ibn Muflih, in his work, he also talks about the narrations. He's not just cataloging narrations without examining them. He also examines their chains of narration, their authenticity levels, and he will argue sometimes points that have been made, even will debate scholarly positions that came before him based on the nature of those narrations and their strength or validity. So one of the reasons that this particular book is so valuable is that it preserves the passages from earlier Hanbali works that are now lost. So some of the citations that he presents in his work are preserved here, and we can't get them. We don't have access to them. Some of them may be like trapped in manuscripts somewhere, buried on shelves, or like in personal libraries. That's what happens sometimes with manuscripts. They didn't make it to publication. They didn't get picked up by a major publishing house, or they got buried due to a lack of maybe interest. The market wasn't demanding it. It didn't get attraction, and it could be buried. And so it's works like his that preserve those very scholarly statements and that legacy. So that's an important part of what this work offers us and does for us as well. So we just looked at Ibn Muflih. That was kind of like a little break from the fragrance idea, the fragrance topic, right? So let's take a moment here, look at some of the comments. Take advantage of the availability of all our scholars today while you still can. Jazakallah khair. We got some other people talking about the loss of scholars is one of the signs of the nearness of the last day. Yes, very true. What else we have here? It's a thing. I don't know. It was something I said. Is it a thing? It's clearly a thing. Our Hanbali Sufi. That was the thing. Yeah. Are the Hanbali Sufi? It's clearly a thing. It's black and white on the page. You're exact. That's why I'm bringing it up. It is clearly a thing. Okay. When did the separation of Hanbali and Sufism happen, or friction? Was it post MIAW? MIA for sure. MIA, bro. We're missing in action, if you know what I'm saying. We're missing in all the spiritual action, that is. Look, dudes, if you start stripping your religion of spiritual endeavor, if you start stripping your religion of jihad and mujahada, muraqaba, if you start to strip your religion of love for Allah, love of his messenger, pursuing that, you're going to end up with a very dry spiritual state. You don't want to be dried out, right? You're going to be void of any fragrance of love. It will not be on you. And that's why the tradition has always been to marry fiqh with spiritual pursuit. It can't just be surface level application. You cannot live solely on discipline. You cannot, the long game is not based on discipline. A person's discipline. If you're trying to base your religion on your discipline, it's just a matter of time before the bottom falls out. Because, you know, we only have so much of that. Our bandwidth is limited. The gas tank runs out. That gas tank of discipline runs out. That is, if it's just pure discipline, like I'm just checking boxes, getting through, there are personalities that are prone to discipline and they gravitate towards that, and some do better than others. But ultimately, what is going to help you stay progressing forward in the journey to the home of the hereafter is love. It's going to be about love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, love of his messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. That is what's going to keep you headed in the right direction. And that's what's going to help facilitate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's support of you, is having that love in your heart. And so you cannot strip the religion of the spiritual tradition that has brought. That's why we're talking about taste and fragrance and scents. We're talking about these things because this is the ruh of the deen. This isn't the body of the deen. It's the ruh. The body is the physical acts of worship. The ruh of it is the feelings, the experiences, the openings that one is blessed with. And those, they have to be cultivated. They have to be cultivated. And how can we help do that? Fragrances, odors. So before we wrap up this session, I wanted to push further into the chapter, and I'm going to really do a hack job on summarizing what he has to say, because the bulk of the chapter that he authored about fragrances is about specific fragrances and associated things. So like Ibn Muflih is writing this chapter not because fragrance is a minor luxury. He's devoted like 15, 16, 17 pages because it was beloved to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is, I think, where it all comes back. Otherwise, why? Like, why are we so interested in this? And so the list that he makes, it's not a simple list. It's not a simple list. It's that he discusses the different qualities, how things are prepared. He also records how physicians talked about or addressed the relationship of fragrances to the body and as well to the heart, the memory, the mood, the bodily health. It's very interesting because his documentation kind of tracks along with a lot of what I mentioned in that study about aroma, fragrances, mood, and the human biology and neuroologies, etc. They kind of track together, even if, you know, there's like a gap of, I don't know, 700 years. We're still getting kind of the same themes that pop up from this time until now. And he mentions there are two things that I think are interesting. Two fragrances that stood out to me. One example is al-Misk, musk. We're familiar with that? And he says, and this is the nature of his entry, and this is again summarized. He begins with the entry of musk as a fragrance with medical language that they used during the time. And the medical language that they would use during the time was like hot and cold, dry and moist. They had this language that was based on humors, not like humor, like I have a good sense of humor, but like humors in terms of like what's hot, what's cold, what's dry, what's moist, what's, they have like colors, black bile, yellow bile, those types of things, which is like getting the body to be in balance. And this is like a framework that was very popular during that time in the medical world and was utilized by many of the great imams when they talked about a person's mizaj, their temperament. And they would give advice about how to balance your temperament, not only with the things that you would eat, but the type of sleep that you got, the things that you drank, your daily habits. And so he says that musk is hot in the second degree and dry in the first. All right, so this is a description of the kind of like reality of musk as a fragrance. And they're plotting this like, maybe you could say like a 4 square. So they'd say like one here and then a secondary one here. To the tones. Yeah. So like the notes and the tones and things like that. So you have a second degree hot, first degree dry. So this puts it immediately in that tradition that the physicians would use, and then of course adopted by the scholarly class when addressing these issues. Then he begins to unpack what physicians had to say about it. They describe musk as bringing joy to the soul, strengthening the heart, benefiting the brain and the body, internal organs, sharpening the senses, and even serving as an antidote for certain poisons. Some recommended inhaling it. Others prescribed it in small quantities as a part of a medicinal preparation. Even notes that excessive use of musk or misk could result in be unsuitable for certain temperaments. It could kind of create an imbalance in certain people. In other words, this wasn't just like a perfume that we think of like, I just want to smell good. It was treated as a carefully studied aromatic substance with a whole range of applications. That's why this is in a Tadawi, the chapter on seeking medicine or taking medicine, because they saw it as much more than just like personal hygiene. And of course, we already heard from him the narration of the hadith about musk, huwa atyabu tibikum, the Prophet saying it's the best of your tib. Another thing that's invoked when we think of musk is a verse from the Quran, wa khitamuhu misk, wa khitamuhu misk, talking about the vessels that contain drinks in paradise, that they're sealed with musk, sealed in that the believer will be the one that opens it. You know, the first time you open it, it's new, it's yours exclusively, and that seal is musk. It's another narration that even the soil of paradise is described to be fragrant as musk. Another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that Janna is built from bricks of gold and silver, and the mortar of that is red musk. The mortar between the bricks of gold and silver is red musk. And then another one of the so we have now two. We mentioned now two. He mentions frankincense, by the way, in there. We're not going to mess with that for now. We want to touch on musk, and what did we say? Ambergris, musk and ambergris. Now, yes, this is where things get interesting. This, I'm already super excited. Where does musk. No, let's start with ambergris.
Oh.
Where does ambergris come from? Give it to me. What do we got? Nice. That's our perfume. That's what we're putting on. Okay. The longevity. Oh yeah. Can we turn on Michael's microphone as well? I want to pull him in here because we need to dive a little, literally diving into the of the whale. You know what I'm saying? Get this going. So what do we say? It's the excrement of the whale.
Yeah, it's from the intestine.
From the intestine.
Yeah,
all right. All right. We were chatting about this on the way up here. And he was like doing the research. So what else can you tell us? It's sperm whale, right?
Yeah, sperm whale specifically.
Sperm whale. The sperm whale. Okay, cool.
I thought they were like, for some reason, like not carnivorous, but like they eat like everything down there. I saw a fish. You saw a photo.
Okay.
Blood everywhere. So,
there was blood in the water, and it was not innocent looking.
No, it was not
the
cute.
Sperm whale was going to town on what?
Squid. Everything. Orca. I don't know.
Oh, orca?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the whales are huge.
Yeah, and they're really far deep down. Like they're like the bottom layers of the ocean. That's what they.
Okay.
And then it just floats to the top, and then
so that it's excrement. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
it's something that's being digested.
Yeah.
We don't want to like start envisioning that. Like, But so then what happens? So it's not like we get that raw material literally.
No. It's like it's like fecal matter almost.
Okay.
And then when he said, when it gets towards the top, it oxidizes with the sunlight. And then that develops the aroma. It takes a long time.
It takes a process. And then through the salt water, I'm sure salt water has some type of pH balances happening.
Probably something like that, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What are we thinking out of? A pH balance is taking place? It's changing, pH is changing, the sun is beaming on it, and then it ends up washing ashore.
Yeah.
And so people harvest it. So we're thinking you don't go to the sperm whale and harvest this.
No.
It has to be occurring naturally through this process. And think about this. The process is happening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creating the process, facilitating it from production, literal production, if you know what I'm saying, until it arrives and it's gathered by us. And somehow it just happened to be discovered that it could be used as a fragrance. So that is rather interesting to me. And I'm going to make a connection in a minute. I'm going to try my best. We're going to try and, again, we're doing the tapestry here. The other interesting fragrance is musk. So we have ambergris and now musk. So the question is, where does musk come from? Where do we get the fragrance of musk? From the glands of a musk deer. Like so. Yeah, most of it's artificial. But you have to imagine during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, we're not manufacturing artificial musk. We're actually dealing with the raw, real deal stuff. So what are we talking about here? The glands of the musk deer. It's an internal gland that has to be excreted. No, I think they harvest that. I think you have to harvest the gland of the musk deer.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I think it's harvested. And then from the gland, yeah, we got some pictures here. I think from the gland, there's a process by which you harvest. Okay, you harvest it from the gland, and you have to process that, and then it produces the aromatic raw material used to make the fragrance musk. Largely, okay, look. Oh, wait, hold on a second. You're saying the practice is largely banned in order to protect the musk deer. Oh, I just saw a picture where it looked like somebody was harvesting that right there. Is that what they're doing? They're harvesting? Where? Where must, yeah, let's not. It's not like gross or anything. It's just like somebody's manipulating the animal and inserting something to maybe harvest or extract some of that. But I don't think that's how it's harvested. I think from what I understand, you have to get the actual gland. And yes, these are glands. Yeah, I believe these are the musk glands right here. And then you have to harvest that, and it has to age, has to dry out, it has to age, and then it begins to change. Like the pH of it has to change, and then the odor starts to develop to where it now becomes a sweet, pleasant odor. So listen to this part right here. This is what, when I think about this and I get past the like organic nature of it, right? The organic nature of what it is, the origin story of ambergris and musk coming from the region of the animal, you know? And I think about the origin story in a different way. Two fragrances. These are at the center of Ibn Muflih's discourse, or his discussion on fragrance themselves. Look at this. The musk comes from the musk deer. And you know how deer are. Shy animals. They're like, kind of like, whew, spooky, are easily spooked most of the time. Maybe are more like neighborhood deer, are a little bit more bold.
Oh yeah, they just do whatever they want.
They just in your garden,
they don't care,
eating up your tulips.
Yeah, poor tulips, man.
I mean, they snack on all. I got all kind of little things happening in my yard. I'll find them snacking on the. They're snacking on the whatevers. I can't remember the names of the plants. I'm not a herbologist, right? You know what I mean? I'm not a botanist.
Topography.
Yeah, topography, bro. I'm not a botanist. There's something there. They're eating them away. But normally they're very like skittish, shy animals. And guess what? The musk deer lives in the mountains of Central and East Asia, according to what I understand. They live in the mountains. So keep that in mind, the mountains. Then we had ambergris, comes from the sperm whale, from within the whale itself, released into the ocean, drifting and aging at sea, sometimes washing ashore, and then becomes this prized raw material for centuries across time. It's considered one of the world's finest ingredients for perfume. So we have one fragrance comes from the mountains, the other comes from the sea. One from a quiet land animal, and the other from the largest toothed predator in the ocean.
Well, apparently you're wrong, because the chat's saying that musk comes from Elon Musk. So
the chat, our chat here saying it comes from Elon Musk.
Yeah. So
that's that cyber musk. We got that cyber musk happening. Yeah, it puts itself on. It's self-applying cyber musk. Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, so.
Is that what they're saying?
Yeah, he said Musk, Elon Musk. Nah, what's this deer stuff we're talking about?
Elon Musk is coming from the gland, the Elon Musk gland. I don't know what that is. Again, no botanist here.
Right.
But from what I understand, this is a new madhab. You're inventing another madhab, the Elon Musk. So, all right, here we go. This is where I think a personal reflection, because I spent some time on this, obviously. Right? Is that not obvious? I spent some time on this. I mean, the fragrances are real. Again, mountain animal, sea animal, the mountains and the sea. So my mind naturally wanders from those two fragrances to the imagery in the Quran of the mountains and the sea. That's right. The mountains and the sea appear again and again throughout Revelation. For example, think about the mountains now. The mountains are often places of retreat. They're described as objects of stability, and they're also locations of divine encounter. Mountains. It was a mountain cave. The Prophet ﷺ would seek seclusion in prior to receiving revelation. It was in that very cave on the mountain that he received the first words of the Quran, Iqra. It was upon the mountain that Musa ﷺ became Kalimullah, right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke to him on the mountain. It was also the mountain upon which the Safina settled. right? Here we are at Safina Society. Safinat Nuh settled on the mountain of Judi. Okay. It also became a place of refuge for the Prophet ﷺ and his companions. Think about the Hijrah. The Prophet ﷺ hid in a mountain cave with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. During the Battle of Uhud, when they retreated, where did they retreat to? They retreated up into the mountain of Uhud. Right, so that's the mountain. When you think about the imagery there and the symbolism of the mountain, and I'm relating this to the fragrance of musk in a way, at least that's what comes to my mind. And then we move to the sea. Also, the imagery of the ocean in the Quran is mentioned more than one time, over and over again. If you think about the sea, the Red Sea was parted by Musa alayhi salam to save his people from Fir'aun. A miracle performed that led them to salvation. Another imagery that you find is Yunus alayhi salam in the belly of the whale, right? The belly of the whale. And that sea was what carried that whale, and Yunus alayhi salam along with him. Moments of what happens for Yunus in the belly of the whale. What happens to him? What he comes to something, right? He comes to terms with what he did, reflections, return, and then he's returning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his duty to call, and is returned back to land. Also, another beautiful image of the sea in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes or uses the parable of the trees as pens and the sea as ink. And that if the pens were to write with all of the ink of the sea, they would not exhaust Allah's words. Allah's speech would not be exhausted if you expended all of the ocean as if it were ink, using the trees as if they were pens. Right? So here, in my mind, that's where I go with it. Like that's the kind of scaffolding of sorts of reflection here. Now, I'm not saying like that musk and ambergris, they symbolize these themes in the Quran. These fragrances symbolize them. What I am suggesting is that I find it beautiful that these two fragrances are treasured. One of them mentioned in the Quran, the fragrances of paradise. And there's this connection that I feel like you can draw based on the origin sources of those fragrances, the very landscapes of the Quran. That's what it invokes in my mind, at least. And it reminds me that we need to allow our minds the space to wonder. We need to free up our minds to be able to wonder in Allah's creation and to ponder and reflect over his revelation and to make connections so that we are living in a religious tradition that's like a tapestry where pieces are woven together in a very beautiful way such that your life is filled with beauty. It's filled with meaning. It's filled with connection. It's not just a bunch of little pieces that are disconnected. And it doesn't serve much purpose for you, right? It's the tapestry that now you get to cover yourself in. You get to comfort yourself with that tapestry of your faith by weaving all of these pieces together. So letting your mind wander, it requires permission first. You have to give yourself permission. I mean, it requires a lot of things. I mean, it needs like, reading and reflection, and needs learning more things. The more things you learn about, not only of our religion, but of the world that Allah has created around us, but also that way you can make these connections and understand. So you have to give yourself this permission to do that, to ask questions, to ponder and to reflect. It's a divine command. And there are ways, like I'm showing, this is just an example of how you yourself could begin to wonder and create these connections, how you can see the poetry, if you will, of our religion. There's something poetic about it's, and I'm not trying to say it's just poetry, okay? But I'm saying it's multi-leveled. It's the depth of it is beyond, I think, what many perceive. And this to me is poetic. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times when the mind doesn't need to wander. This needs to be a controlled experiment, okay? It needs to be wandering in positive ways. There are times that our religion demands absolute precision. Absolute precision. There are times when our religion demands us to hold tightly to the texts and not to go beyond that, not to go beyond what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his messenger have said. And by doing that, we preserve our creed, our belief, we preserve our very law and way of living. But then there are many other moments where we need to roam. Our mind needs to be free to think, to ponder over the mountains and the sea, to ponder over the fragrances of the world and the connections to the fragrances of paradise, to connect that with the stories of the prophets. And if you can do that, you'll begin to notice a beautiful relationship between all of it. And then you'll begin to live in this world in a very, I think, poetic way, a beautiful way.
Someone said it's getting harder to do that these days with technology, but I think it might be the opposite. I can go to Australia on my TV now. Bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
Animal Planet. That.
Are we still live here with Michael? Okay, good. I like that point. Technology. Someone says it's hard to do that with technology today. You know what? Technology is one of those things where it can work for you or it can work against you. And I think Michael's point is great. And I'm not discounting the point that was made here about it being a distraction, because I think today we're employing technology in more of a distraction than actually of any positive benefit. But like, we just visited Damascus. We visited Iraq before. We've been to South Africa, Cape Point. I'm still wondering if our homie from Cape Point has set the couch out there. Where's the couch, bro? And are we getting any updates on the couch? On the beach of Cape Point. You weren't here for the last episode with me. So we had to, so this is what we did. We traveled to South Cape Point, Cape Town, South Africa. We went to a beach there. One of our viewers from Safina Society, South Africa branch. We got branches, right? We got representation in South Africa now. Yeah. So South Africa was there. And we all agreed, look, guys, it wasn't me. It was not me. We agreed that we needed a waypoint for Safina Society members to be able to stop in South Africa and get to the couch, to relax and take in the views for moments of tadabbur and tafakkur. We got to think and ponder right there in front of that beautiful blue ocean, hopefully seeing some sperm whales.
Yeah, ambergris.
Yeah, harvesting some ambergris. You know what I mean? You know, and that's what we're checking in on. Where are we? What's the progress report? Let us know. Are we doing the couch thing? Do we need a time extension? It's okay if I'm in New Jersey, I'll put a couch out in Cape May instead. Cape May is in the house. Yes. But we're already in Jersey. We've already got our waypoint right here. We need us a waypoint out in Cape Point. We're going to check in on that. Can we zoom in on that? Can we pull that up on the map? Cape Point? Yeah. I think we had enough time that Google Maps should have refreshed.
Is Cape Town or Cape Point?
Cape Point is the exact place.
Where?
Yeah, Cape Point. All right. So while you're looking at that, Cape Point, trying to find the couch out there. I don't know, man. I don't want to put pressure, but it is a high stakes situation, is it not?
Yeah, no, definitely. Very important.
It's very important. I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a couch.
It is a couch. And I said a hut too, by the way.
Oh, so they're slacking.
Yeah, tiki hut.
Oh, so they're slacking.
Well, I don't know. It might be there. It might be waiting for us.
I mean,
the hut
my fault.
and the couch might be waiting for us. I don't know, because you do need a little shade probably. You need a place to, I'm wondering, does Cape Point have coconuts? Because listen, I lived in Tanzania for 6 months and we used to drink coconut water like it was sold on the street. Big wheelbarrows of coconuts. And, you know, you would go and they would chop it open right for you right there. And you'd get fresh coconut water. And then for an extra, I want to say, like, I can't remember the denomination of the currency, but whatever, the shilling, maybe. shilling, maybe. I don't know what it was. Yeah, that's exactly where we want to be. They would carve out the flesh, the meat of the coconut for you. They'd stand there, and then you could eat that. So you get like a full drink and then a full meal. And I'm wondering if we have those at Cape Point, so we can enjoy coconuts while we're at the waypoint of Safina Society, South Africa. Let's see if you can get an aerial view. Yeah, from above. Zoom out. Oh, somebody's foot's in the way. Zoom out. Because you're very close to where we want to be. We're watching Edif here do his thing. How do we exit this thing? Maybe you click the exit. There we go. All right, do the satellite layer. Yep. All right, cool. Scroll left. Keep going. Keep going. Here comes the beach. A little more. A little more. Right there. That's our beach. Diaz Beach. Here we go. And I don't see the tiki huts.
Oh, God.
I do not see the couch yet. Diaz Beach is still couchless. You're right. He might have done it. Okay. He might have put it out there, and we're just not getting the updated on Google. Google South Africa might not be, or the satellites might not be hitting right. We might need a little more time. So if you're tuned in, you could always do us the favor and shoot us an email with some photos, and we can promote that and open it up for the Safina Society members so that they can hit the beach there. Diaz Beach looks beautiful.
Maybe that foot we saw was them getting ready to make the hut.
It could be. Could be. You're right. Somebody's out there doing it. All right, so let's jump back. Let's jump out of South Africa. All right, we've done South Africa now. We're gonna wait for a better way to authenticate and confirm couch deployment. Back to this point here, as we're wrapping up our topic on the fragrances. Okay, this is I think where we're going to get here. Well, notice one thing, Ibn Muflih, in his discussion of this, there's a beautiful passage, very striking. He says, in fumigation, and this is tabakhur, right? Bukhur. If you've ever done bukhur, where they had the little charcoal and then they put like a little puck of some fragrant thing, aromatic thing that's going to now burn, and it's going to just make the place delightful, hopefully. He says, in fumigation, that is burning incense, consideration is given to the quality of the air and its improvement, for the soundness of the body is tied to the soundness of the air. Back to that environment. So when you're coming into the masjid, we're considering not just your presence and your person, how you're handling your person, but we're also considering quality of air. So if you're at a negative on the odor meter, you're not considering the air quality. It's not making an improvement. And therefore, it is impacting the soundness of the body because it's tied to the soundness of the air. Think about that, right? It wasn't viewed as simply something that you put on your body, but it was used to shape the atmosphere of the home or a gathering place, the studio, or a place of worship. So those are things that we have to take into consideration. And this isn't a coincidence. Everything that we've talked about, this is all connected, and it's connected to this culture that we have of fragrance in Islam. And it didn't emerge on its own, by the way. It wasn't that Ibn Muflih was just a perfume guy. It was because the Prophet ﷺ loved pleasant fragrances. And what the Prophet loves, the Muslims, the believers of them, naturally come to love that thing. They naturally want to come to love that thing, and they find ways to fall in love with those things because they are in love with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when you truly love somebody, you want to insert yourself into their life in such a way that I love what he loves. I admire what he admires. I aspire to be like him. And that is, again, goes back to the essence of love in our religion. Not just I'm practicing the sunnah because it's a discipline for me. It's brought discipline to my life. Yeah, it will bring discipline to your life. It will bring order to your life. It will arrange things, put things into perspective. But guess what? That's not what it is at its very essence. The practice is based on the love for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that's perhaps one of the most beautiful lessons I think that we can draw from this particular chapter, which is very detailed about all of those fragrances. I mean, think about Muslim life and perfumes and fragrances, bukhurs and incense and things like that. It's deeply connected to cleanliness, right? Beauty, health, hospitality. In certain cultures, when a guest comes over, what do you gotta do to the air? You gotta put some bukhur. You want to honor a guest, you light bukhur. You honor a place, you light bukhur. Even our places of worship. So here's one last question I want to bring to your attention, because also on the way up here, not only were we looking at sperm whales, and how they were bloodying up the water. We didn't know that. We didn't know that they were such like monsters of the ocean, right? We were also catching up on news from abroad in Gaza and the surrounding region, and seeing how it continues, the slaughter, displacement, and destruction continues to happen, even though, you know, it's not being highlighted as much as now what's happening in Iran, you know, but that's still going on. They're destroying homes, they're abusing, killing, and I think the world now has come to understand the reality of what's happening there. And so I think the question might come to mind, and this comes to my mind every once in a while, you know, as we live our daily lives and we continue to press on, talking about perfume and fragrance. Why would we spend time talking about perfume and fragrance? Like, why is that something that we're investing any time in when there's other things that are happening around the world? Starving, displacement, struggle to survive. Does perfume even really matter? Is that even a point to discuss? And at one level, I think the answer is quite obvious. There are priorities, and priorities are very real. Like, a person who has no food is not worried about what their odor meter is reading. They're not worried about, am I a 1 or a 2 or a 3? I'm just worried about, am I going to get my next meal? And that's the situation that we're seeing. Where am I going to get water to drink, let alone clean myself? If a family's fleeing from war, they're not thinking about incense, perfume oils, or whether the room smells pleasant. If they're dealing with such dire straits, this is probably the last thing on their mind. I'm not saying that it's not on their mind. It will probably be a last thing on their mind in terms of the priority of needs. And in Islam, our Islamic law itself recognizes these layers. In our law, we have what are known as daruriyat. These are the bare essentials, the absolutes. We have al-hajiyat. These are the needs. And then we have tahsiniyat. And these are like the embellishments. It's like the decoration of life. The necessities, the daruriyat, are the things without which life will collapse. So like stability in society, food, clothing, shelter, safety, those things are daruriyat. They're absolute essentials. Hajiyat are the things without which life becomes strained and difficult, like regulated business practices, trade, buying and selling, shipping. Those are hajiyat. Logistics, those things we need in order to facilitate life, not just to live, but now to like facilitate how we are going to live. And then you have the refinements, which I call tahsiniyat, that categorized that way. And this is what gives life beauty. The tahsiniyat are what give people dignity. Tahsiniyat are what indicate maturity of society and civilization. They're like the polish. So fragrance belongs to that third level. Fragrance belongs to the tahsiniyat. It's like siwak, taking care of your teeth. That's from the tahsiniyat, like matters of hospitality and cleanliness, manners, and the care that we take not to offend other people in the process, like your odor meter rating. Those are all min at-tahsiniyat. And these things in this category, they sit near the pinnacle of a healthy society because they only become possible when the people of that society are no longer consumed by survival alone. They're no longer consumed by fulfilling bururiyat and then working towards hajiyat. They're now freed to polish. And Islam didn't come just so people could live, but it came to refine them. إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. Akhlaq, he said, I was only sent to complete noble, righteous manners. Manners are min at-tahsiniyat, your etiquette. The Prophet ﷺ came not just to teach us how to preserve our belief, our wealth, our bodily existence and life, but he came to teach us how to live beautifully. And once those foundations were in place, then how to enter a gathering, how to care for your body, how to remove offensive odor, how to honor guests, and how to make your presence pleasant rather than burdensome, they began to take on those tasks. So fragrance, of course, it's not the first concern of a collapsing society, but it's one of the signs that a society has risen above that collapse. And it tells us that there's room again for care. When we're able to focus on that we can begin to care, we can give attention, and we can give dignity. Why do you think when humanitarian relief organizations give out relief, they don't just give food, but they give hygiene kits? Why do you think that's so important? They give hygiene kits because they want that person who's in such dire straits and needs to have dignity. They're trying to restore just a moment of dignity. It's like somebody who is suffering from a collapse of society or a war-torn region or going through a tremendous upheaval in their life. When you are there to fulfill those basic needs, giving them a pot of rice or a bucket of fresh water, and then you were to hand them tib, you're reminding them of what life can be when it's restored, what you can get back to when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala relieves you of your burdens. It can give you that tib, can be a source of hope for someone. It can invoke memories of when there was a time in which they would have just really enjoyed going and buying tib. And that being what's on their mind. Look, I've got to prepare for a moment. I have an event, an engagement. I have something, and I need to go get some nice tib. So yes, it might not be on the top of the priority list, but all of these things work together. And when you get to the level of the tahsiniyat, do you know the tahsiniyat, they act like a shield. They act like a wall of protection around al-hajiyat, as the hajiyat act like a protection of al-dururiyat. So when you're up here, your society has reached a level where now you can become interested in polish and embellishments and dignity and care. You're now protecting the collapse of al-hajiyat. It builds on itself. So that's the objective, and that's where we should constantly be aiming to living a beautiful life. A beautiful life. And that's essentially, I think, what refinement is all about. That's the ultimate goal, not just survival, but refinement. And that is maybe what Ibn Muflih, al-Hanbali, al-Qadiri, perhaps, brings this chapter together for for us to connect his work on fragrance with that greater outlook, of achieving that pinnacle in our worlds. And I think that's what we pray for, that's what we hope for in this life. And certainly we hope for that in the next. And this is where we are going to leave you for the episode. And inshallah, we'll be back. We have another very important continuation of this as it relates to the Quran. We're going to talk about fragrance and the Quran, inshallah ta'ala, and continue looking at the life of the Prophet ﷺ and some of his miracles. Until then, we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless you, to protect you, to provide for you, to guide you, and to pardon you and us from mistakes, to overlook our faults, and to continue to grant us safety and protection from those who seek to harm us. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala deliver our brothers and sisters around the globe that are suffering, to deliver them from their hardships, and to facilitate safe passage in this life to the home of the hereafter. With that, subhanakallahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.